Okay, guys, this is Moshe coming to you from Israel and the Galilee on the 31st of March, Monday, 9:52 in the morning. It's about 61 degrees right now. It's going to hit 80 today, so you have to kind of give room to it. It looks like we're in summer. Fig tree, remember? Summer, harvest. Okay. Um, it looks like this is it. We're going into the latter stages of the end of the age. And I'm going to break it down for you today with a lot of information that many of you wouldn't normally know because you don't live here in Israel. Like Jordan is a key issue here, and what Iran is doing in Jordan, basically trying to take it over and then unify with Syria and Iraq and get dominance in the area again. And the Russian head of the missiles just left Belarus, and Belarus is building Orishnikov missile launchers to launch those long range hypersonic ballistic missiles that I'm sure Russia gave them. That's extremely serious. Iran is saying they have assets in the Gulf of America, the Gulf of Mexico, previously named. And we know that an Iranian cargo plane, I think Saturday, went to Venezuela, and those planes are used, that particular plane's used to transport weapons, missiles. Venezuela could hit Florida military bases or other places from Venezuela with these Iranian missiles. We don't know what's in Cuba. Are there Russian submarines and warships in Cuba? There often are. Are there Iranian ships in Cuba? There are Iranian missiles in Cuba, Iranian troops. We don't know any of this. And we're going to get into all of these things today. And also, America's continuing to bomb the Houthis, and the Houthis are still launching occasionally. Well, I think they had a 24-hour interruption, but they've recovered from that. And more aerial refueling tanker planes have left for the Middle East, and the Carl Vinson, some people are saying might actually show up in the Middle East Thursday or Friday. I don't know really. It could be, but I'm not so sure that quick. The other aircraft carriers are going to take longer, probably 2 weeks at least. So, um, and we're going to break down why America has to strike Iran first and soon. Real soon. You could forget that 2 month business. Iran, the Khomeini was not going to negotiate, is not going to negotiate with Trump. And Trump sent a letter to him that Sky News in Australia released, which basically said, you know, hey, I'd like to negotiate with you on this nuke deal, but if you're not going to negotiate, the bombs are coming next. And these are really big, bad bombs. And Israel's preparing to attack Iran. So I am going to go into the live stream and make sure we got a live stream and check sound and picture, put a couple of quick posts up while people come in. And this gives you an idea of what we're going to cover today. So I don't like to be deceitful. Go into the live stream and make sure, you know, write headlines, hey, you never believe what happened, you know, and that kind of thing. All right. I'm going to put up my post right now, which is going to take a very brief period of time, and I want to wait for people to come in. Okay? So here I go. And I can't talk a lot while I do the post or I get typos, as anybody would. I was just going to conduct casual conversations, about who has the best pizza in Israel or something like that, I could post and carry conversations like that. I got a typo. Darn it. All right, got to redo. Sorry, I better shut up and get this done right the first time. All right. You know, I got to concentrate on what I'm doing and I don't want to make mistakes. All right, I think I got it right. All right, I'll just get my email address up now, which take a few seconds, and then we'll get going. That looks like it went okay. Okay, looks like we're good. I'm going to do some praise, being a Bible believing site, Old and New Testament, and then we'll get into it. And it's pretty heavy duty today. Believe me, it all comes, and it looks like it's coming this week. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 All right, a quick boring update. I did get the new Samsung phone, the S24 Ultra. It came yesterday, and the provider for the phone said they had sent me a QR code, and I didn't check my email. I thought it was in that email. I never got one, so I tried to set the phone up without a QR code and without a physical chip. And I didn't know Samsung booby traps it like that. So they were asking me for my Google password, and I tried all the passwords I knew, but I think I might have omitted one. So I was pulling my hair out. I couldn't get to the home screens. So then I had to study YouTube and figure out how to do a hard reset and wipe the data. And I did that, and I tried again, and I failed. So by that time I was this took me about 2 or 3 hours to get that far, because I never had this before. So I got to try another password and then swipe the data out again, wipe the data, which now I know how to do. And then I wrote the email to them. I want the QR code, and I'll call them later if I don't have it. And then I'll put the QR in, and then I won't have this problem. I did manage to get as far as getting it online with the internet, but I'm not used to this. When the last time I bought a phone was 5, 6 years ago, and I didn't have anything like this because the store took the chip from the old phone, put it in the new phone, and transferred the data for me, and it was fine. But I didn't realize that they go paranoid crazy when you don't have a phone chip in the phone. They go nuts. And I should have the new Samsung S10 Plus tablet before the end of the week. And so I'll be cooking with gas again. All right. So this is huge. Okay. It's huge. It looks like Russia's getting ready to go to attack. Look, Trump told Russia publicly, which is like telling it to Russia. He said, look, um, if I find out that the reason we don't have a peace deal with Ukraine is because of Putin, I'm going to put tariffs on every country that buys oil, and I assume natural gas, from Putin. Maybe just oil. And I think I heard a figure of 25%, but that's the figure he usually uses for this type of thing, like with Iran. So um, Putin, he's basically saying he's going to crush Putin. They don't have bricks ready yet. Okay. I think with the new bricks and the digital currency and the payment system and all this stuff, I think they're not crazy. China just built a new ship to cut cables that I understand works quite well, and it could go down a few thousand feet, like 2,000 or something. This is, if you're working in shallower water, which is normally the case with the cables, because they're close to shore, but I guess some of them have to cross deep water. You can drop an anchor and just drag the anchor and rip the cable. But some of these cables are what they call armored. So they probably put concrete shells around them. And they may not be that easy to cut with just dragging an anchor. Maybe the anchor chain breaks first. Some of these anchor chains are at least 1.5 inches, 2 inches thick. They're huge. So I really don't know. But it appears to me that you could simply put a depth charge down where you think the cable is, and with a depth charge, you probably could miss by easily 30 to 50 feet. Like with a 2,000, a barrel basically with 2,000 pounds of high explosives might even break the cable at 100 feet. So you just drop a pattern. You do some detection and you drop a pattern where you're pretty sure the thing is, like, you drop 8 or 10 of these depth charges and you're going to break the cable, I would think. Okay. They also have unmanned submarines that could go down that deep and cut cables. All you got to do is drop an explosive charge. If you could see where the cable is with the submarine drone, you drop it 2-3 feet away from the cable or right where the cable is, and you wouldn't need much of a charge. 50 pounds most, boom, no more cable. So I think that Russia and China are trying to develop something that would work wireless with, radio signals, so it wouldn't be vulnerable to cutting. But then you have to remember, if you're transmitting in the air, anybody could receive it. Now, de-encrypting it is a problem, but there probably are measures that can be taken to decrypt it. Okay, I would think. Like, you might have a password reset automatically. So every time you send a transaction in with a password, which would probably be 200 to 1,000 characters, something of that magnitude, which is going to take them some time, you know. And then you have confirmations and different things. You could have the transmission by wireless, and then there's a confirmation signal sent to your phone, or sent to you by email, or sent to you some other way that you have to confirm whether the transaction dies. They could set it up for sure. That's what I think they're going to do. Then they could go cut the cables like crazy, and you can't get back at them. Of course, the internet will be gone. and other things. So ATM machines may go down, the SWIFT system would go down, IBAN would go down, many things would go down. Okay, traveler's checks may not be able to be verified. Western Union and MoneyGram may go down. The Bitcoins may prove worthless. You're going to see a drop in value of, there's always a few diehards that are going to hang on to it and go negative and maybe even buy it if it's down 85 or 90% drop in value and hope for the best. But that'll be it for all the digital currencies, and lots of other things will go out. All right. So back to, so Iran is not negotiating with Trump. Trump is threatening, not just putting pressure on him, to bomb them. And he even said, no nuke deal, there come the bombs, and they're really big, powerful bombs. And Iran maybe never, ever experienced bombs like what America has, okay? I doubt they ever did. I doubt anybody ever did. I don't think Trump is playing games with Iran, okay? Now, we need to look at the threats that Iran made to Trump. First threat was, we have assets in the Gulf of America, which is the Gulf of Mexico, okay? And I believe that they do have ships there. Does America know they have ships there? I would have to tell you that it's a maybe. Why do I say something like that? Because Iran rather, has built for years, shipping containers, like 40-foot containers. They're 8 feet high, 8 feet wide, 40 feet long. They built these things to be put missile launchers in these things. And since America at most inspects 1 or 2% of the containers coming in, maybe 3%, Iran has probably sent a lot of these into America for the sleeper agents. But additionally, Iran loads these on container ships so they could put, 200 of these containers on a big ship, okay? Easily. Or 100. Some of these launchers have one missile. I think some have a double launcher. Now, what do they do for radar? Well, the container ship has radar. They just put military radar up instead of civilian radar. So instead of going out 20 or 30 miles, the radar probably goes out between 100 and 200 miles, which gives them plenty of room. America's claimed sovereignty of the water at 25 miles. So if they're 35 miles away, they're fine. Now, they're not going to hit Kansas and Oklahoma, but they could hit coastal cities, where there's a lot of military bases. Now, Florida can be hit from the Gulf, of course. They also said they have assets in the Caribbean. I think the assets in the Caribbean are Cuba, but they could have ships there. Now, Russia routinely has ships going to and fro Cuba for many years. And they dock up their warships, okay? I've lived in the Middle East for many years, and these terrorist states in the Middle East are completely insane. They belong in psychiatric mental hospitals. They don't even know right from wrong. They're completely lunatics. Okay, they're nutbags. All right, and if they attack a bigger country, their position is, hey, if they're still alive, hey, look, we won. That's their position in Gaza with Hamas. They're down from 50,000 to 20,000. Gaza is a heap, a dump, and they're operating like they won because they're still sitting on our hostages. And they're not scared. Why? Because if they get killed, they go in their theology, which is false. They go to Mohammedanism, they go to heaven or paradise and get the 70 virgins. So they don't care if they get killed. You understand? If they're still alive and the real estate is destroyed, they consider it a win. The Houthis are launching missiles at Israel practically every day, and Israel takes them down. So far, this go round, 100% takedown. But hundreds of thousands or millions of people got to go to the bomb shelters. So they wake them up at night and they got to run to their bomb shelter.
I set your bomb shelter alarm for 7 p.m.
I don't know what that was. Let me get rid of it. Hey, Siri. Cancel bomb shelter alarm for 7 p.m.
I turned off your bomb shelter alarm at 7 p.m.
So the Houthis are like the Iranians. What you don't know is Iran is experiencing a major drought, and their big water reservoir is down to 6%. So just to make the point, it's 94% depleted of water. People in Iran turn their water on and they get mud and yucky, colored water coming out of their faucet. So they're having to get water from tankers. And what is a water tanker? In a lot of countries around the world, they have what the truck looks like with the tank that fills the gas stations. Okay, that's what these are, but they're not holding gas, they're holding water. And you call them and they come to your house and you pay them. And a lot of people have a water tank in the ground if they got or whatever, or maybe they're just coming with trucks. And you take a couple of 5-gallon plastic, containers out there and fill it up and get 10 or 15 gallons of water and you make do. The people that have water flow in the faucets in Iran, they only turn the faucets on for 2 hours a day. This came from water mismanagement that Iran did. Now, they're so crazy, they don't care about anything except war and killing. It's a holy war to them. they're at a point where people are going to have to leave Iran because of no water. You understand how insane they are? They're nuts. America did 17 airstrikes on Yemen last night. There were casualties and deaths. America's just pounding and pounding and pounding the Houthis. And they're shooting missiles and drones, different types of missiles and drones in a swarm package at the American ships, the aircraft carrier Truman with the escort vessels to protect it. And it requires the Truman to stay out of range of these missiles, which is probably about 200 miles. So the Truman's still in the Red Sea, but they're not about to go anywhere near they're not about to go anywhere near Yemen because they don't want to get hit with, 8 or 10 drones and 2 or 3 missiles and 2 or 3 other kinds of missiles all at the same time. Could overwhelm their defenses. To the best of my research, they've not scored a hit on any American vessels in this go-round. I believe a few months ago under Biden, they did get some hits, but not that bad. So Iran is supposed to have ships in the Red Sea that are intelligence ships that are guiding missiles and drones for Yemen. I think 4. A few days ago, they dispatched submarines to the Red Sea. America took down one of their intelligence gathering ships and sunk it maybe a week or 10 days ago, 12 days, something like that. And Trump warned them about that with the other ships. So I think at the same time Trump strikes Iran, he'll take out their warships, which will be easy. More refueling tankers left America for the Middle East. There's already 10 or 12 in Diego Garcia alone. They have 8 B-52 bombers in Diego Garcia now, and people are bouncing around between 7 and 9 B-2 Spirit bombers. I think the number's 8. Some people say 7. I don't want to fight it, One of the bombers on the way over here a few days ago had trouble and had to do an emergency landing in Hawaii. So it's not 9, so it could be 8, it could be 7. Now, they also sent A-10 Warthogs over here yesterday. I don't know if they arrived yet, but they're on the way. Now, they wouldn't tell us how many A-10 Warthogs came, but they did tell us that 300 airmen were sent with the Warthogs. So they didn't send 3 or 4 Warthogs. You don't need 300 guys to fly them and service them and maintain them and all that. No. They might have sent 15, 20, 25, I don't know. Additional, they already have A-10 Warthogs here. A-10 Warthogs are very good for hitting ground targets and also taken out ships. They have a Gatling gun cannon on there, which is, I think, 20 or 30 millimeter or something like that. They may come in two different versions. And they fire about 3,000 rounds a minute. It's a round cannon with rotating barrels. So the pilot flies up on a ship, and the 20 millimeter has a 5-mile range. He locks his radar onto the ship and starts firing bursts, but every time he pulls the trigger, you're getting 8 or 10 bullets. These could be armor piercing and incendiary. So they're going to penetrate the hulls and the general body of the ship and cause fires, which means goodbye ship. It means abandoned ship. This is the captain. This is not a drill. Abandoned ship, abandoned ship, abandoned ship, you know, that kind of thing, right? They may or may not have enough time to lower lifeboats and get away, because these ships probably are going to have secondary explosions, and that'll be it. Other American aircraft could hit the ships with small missiles and rockets. American warships can launch anti-ship missiles at the ships. It's all sorts of stuff. So the military buildup is continuing. The amount of aerial tankers they have is staggering. Not just in the Middle East, but they have them in Europe, and they could just get them to come down here pretty quickly. They're in Spain, for instance. So what if America launches aerial refuels from Spain a few hours before the attack? And they loiter around in the skies near the Persian Gulf by the Sea of Oman or the Indian Ocean or something like that. And Iran said they will attack any country that helps the Americans attack them. You got this? So if we come from Spain with refueling tankers, if they can, they would attack Spain, which I believe is a NATO country. So now they're attacking NATO soil. These people belong in psychiatric hospitals because they can't tell right from wrong. They wouldn't be capable of standing trial as serial killers, which they are. Okay? Now they threaten Turkey by name because there's a big base, a NATO base in Turkey called Incirlik. And American planes may take off from the NATO base. So technically, they shouldn't fight Turkey, they should fight NATO. Are they crazy enough to do that? Yeah, but they'd probably attack both NATO and Turkey. See, Turkey's trying to occupy central Syria, made a deal with the HTS government, the new government in Syria. And Iran wants Syria back. Now we need to talk about Jordan. And then when I'm done, I'm going to sum all this up and explain to you why I believe that America will hit Iran in the coming hours or days, not weeks or months. Jordan is a very weak country. The king is a jerk. He's the son of a rich man. His father was king and gave him the country. And the kid grew up with a platinum spoon in his mouth. And he's an incompetent. There's 11,500 Palestinians that are in Jordan for some years now. And they keep trying to push through the border to Israel. It's about, I don't know, 8 or 10 miles from either border, one of the borders of Jordan. Jordan doesn't want a war, so they try to keep the Palestinians from doing anything on the border. But in addition, recently when the Hezbollah and the Bashar Assad guys, Iranian-backed militias and stuff, Hamas, Hezbollah, they ran out of Syria and went into Jordan illegally, and they're still there, a lot of them. And Iran has been, very recently, and still is, getting weapons into Syria and having their agents smuggle them into Jordan from Syria. And that's arming a group called the Muslim Brotherhood, plus the Palestinians, plus Hamas, plus Hezbollah, plus the Iranian-backed militias. The idea is to overthrow the king of Jordan. Now, Iran has a new piece of territory, Jordan. The Muslim Brotherhood get along with Iran just peachy. As does Hamas, as does Hezbollah, as does the Iranian-backed militias. Iraq is already a proxy of Iran. Syria used to be, and they lost it, and with Turkey setting up military base in central Syria, it makes Iran think if they wait long enough for this to happen, they're never going to get Syria back easily or at all. So if Iran can pull this off, what do they get? They got Iraq, then they get Jordan, and they get Syria, and because HTS can't hold up against Iran, especially combined with Iraq and Hezbollah and Hamas and IRGC and all these crazy Iranian-backed militias. So that's puts Iran in a posture where they have Syria, Jordan, and Iraq, a great big swath of land. Okay. And I believe Iran's going to want to do this before America has enough time to bomb the Houthis into oblivion. This thing of them taking over Jordan is the biggest threat that Israel has right now. Huge threat. It's not in the media, I know. It's in, in Israel, people talk about it on social media. And that's one of many reasons why Israel will be attacking Iran, helping America. Now, America has bases in Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan. I think I got them all. And Iran is threatening to get those too. So what is the Pentagon thinking? They're sitting there and they're scared. They're saying, hey, Trump, these lunatics, Trump knows they're lunatics. These lunatics are probably going to do a preemptive strike. They're not going to wait for you to get more aircraft carriers and more war aircraft over here. Why should they do that? They'll strike first. And if they strike first, we're going to suffer a lot of damage. Right? So they're going to tell Trump, this is very dangerous. What if they just start picking off our American bases day by day? Then without the bases there, they could try to overrun the country, do a water landing, or whatever they're going to do. So I think we could forget about Trump waiting for the 2-month window. And I don't think Trump has enough time anymore to wait for the other 2 aircraft carriers to come over. He can wait for the Carl Vinson, which should be this week. This war will be basically fought with missiles and aircraft. Okay? So it's going to be a very fast-paced, fast-moving war. Could this be Revelation 18, where Washington, D.C. Trump's going to go quick, okay? He's got to. Or Iran gets first strike at Trump, at America. These nuts have probably over 100,000 missiles. Iran could easily hit Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, the UAE, and the Houthis could hit Jordan, and they could hit Saudi Arabia. That's it. That's all she wrote. They got to go first. If when they start the attack, Iran's going to start launching, the thought is going to be that Iran could never, ever get off, what's it going to look like? I still think just before he hits Iran, but now it may not be the case. He may be afraid to do it. Yesterday or the day before, or both days, I felt that he would use the B-2s and the B-52s to hit Yemen first, to really cripple them, so we didn't have an uprising of them hitting Saudi Arabia oil fields, Jordan oil fields, bases in Saudi Arabia, bases maybe UAE and Jordan. But I think now if he does hit the Houthis bad, he runs a chance of Iran saying that's enough, we're attacking. So what he has to do is attack Iran first, The nukes can wait. You don't have to hit the nukes first. I don't know if Trump's interested in warning Iran anymore or just decimating them. Okay? But if he spends his first day attacking, knocking out the radar, hitting the 5 nuclear facilities Iran has, doing bunker buster bombs, digging down deep and wrecking them, well, Iran's still intact and they're going to counter launch and cause problems in America and on bases in the Middle East and maybe elsewhere. So what's the logic there? That don't make sense. The best thing to do is attack the Iranian military assets first, and maybe at the same time or afterward hit the nuclear facilities, because you want to mitigate or reduce the amount of damage that Iran could do. You're not going to get rid of all their missiles in one fell swoop, but you could get rid of a lot of them. And you're talking about strikes with at least 100 aircraft now, which Trump has in the Middle East. And Israel could easily come up with that amount also. That's why you got so many refueling tankers here. One refueling tanker probably be for 5 planes, something like that, right? So you probably, by the time it's finished, you probably got 20 or close to 20 of the refueling tankers here. Then add in what Israel has, and you're probably going to be approaching 25. So they're going to run massive airstrikes. That's going to take them a couple of days, if they haven't done it already, to build target packages. Now, their underground missile cities are not 300 feet down like the nuke things. I don't know how far they're down. I would guess they're probably in maybe 100, 120, 140 feet. It's a nightmare, but it's all basic stuff. The Pentagon realizes, and I think Trump realizes, that these are psychopaths and they'll counter launch at American assets and America itself. And Russia and China may help them. Now, it looks like at about the same time this happens, Belarus is going to attack minimally Ukraine, probably also Poland, maybe Romania. You see, Poland is a transit point for weapons going to Ukraine to come in to Ukraine. NATO countries, America, whatever, bring them into Poland, and then Poland has railroads and highways and things like that, and they bring it into Ukraine that way. So one of Putin's heavy duty goals would undoubtedly be to shut the flow of weapons off to Ukraine. And the commander of the Russian missile forces just left Belarus, and they were building, they may have completed, these are not complicated things, setting up or building the Orishnikov missiles. That's their hypersonic ballistic that goes a good long range. Launches for those in Belarus. So the general probably came over to inspect them, make sure they're battle worthy, and so that means in my book that the Orishnikov missiles may already be good to go in Belarus, which can be used to hit American bases and other NATO bases as well. Russia has warships in Asia Pacific now with China. I don't think 2 or 3. I think you're talking a dozen or something like that. See, Russia's resources regarding aircraft and naval ships are not being drained by the Ukraine thing. Russia can move warships and planes around. So this is the thing I told you with the axis of evil. They get Trump sucked into, remember, Jeremiah 50:24, the daughter of Babylon's in a snare, and it's a snare that Jehovah laid. They're not getting out of it. So Trump gets bogged down in the Middle East, and then Russia escalates in Ukraine and expands the war, maybe up in the Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, or Norway, Denmark, Sweden, whatever, and also Romania and Poland. At the same time, he helps Iran by giving them long-range missiles. Is really all he has to do. And we don't know how many submarines he's got in the Middle East either, Putin. Putin's long-range bombers can easily reach the Middle East. Easily. It's hours of flying and they get taken down and destroyed, but if he wanted to do it, he could do it. It's very risky for him. I don't think he's going to try it. And then Iran hits America. Now, what Iran's really trying to do is probably it's a mess, guys. Let me check the live stream, see what's going on. This is a mess and it's going to go down very fast. It's not going to take a great deal of time for this to blow up. It could blow up today. Let me see what's going on in the live stream here. So I want to make sure we don't have people cursing. Russia has also bolstered their submarine numbers. Well, I think you mean the general amount of submarines in their inventory. I don't think I know where they're deployed. Now, Trump may know where they're deployed. Israel may know, but I don't know. They're not telling us. China has converted ferry boats into troop carriers. Remember, they got to go 110 miles from mainland China near Taiwan, but still mainland China, to touch down in Taiwan. And they recently built a lot of ships that have these heavy duty, they're like rails, metal ramps, you might say, that they push off the ship, a landing ship near the shore, and they could drive tanks and other vehicles from the boat onto solid land using these things, which is a big plus. And they don't have to go and attack piers and ports in Taiwan where there's, piers and they could tie up the ship and just conventionally upload the troops like they would like a cruise ship or a ferry boat. You can't do that. They have to go with these ramps, so they don't have to fight to get into a port or a pier, and they don't have to worry about Taiwan blowing their own ports and piers up to stop an invasion. They just go anywhere there's a coastline, and Taiwan's an island, so there's all over the place. Yeah, China's Silk Road, that's another problem. I took a post down. I took the wrong post down. I'm sorry. Uh, so I think there's a tremendous chance that Trump is going to hit Iran in the coming hours or days. He's stupid not to. In the Pentagon, the big generals of bureaucrats, the 3 stars, the 4 stars, probably even the 2 stars, and most of the 1 stars. But the majors and colonels are the real people. They're not Satan bots, and they understand what to do. The other guys, the generals, are stuffed shirts normally. You have Patton, but you also had Eisenhower, a bureaucrat, and you have Patton, a real fighter. And they busted him down. They took him from 3 stars to 2 stars. The soldiers in World War II liked fighting with Patton. Why? Because Patton had a brain and he would create strategies that were unconventional, and the mortality figures and the wounded figures of the Americans was way lower. So they all liked fighting with Patton. He won, and casualties were way down. So these majors and colonels know what's going on, and they're telling Trump and the generals. They're saying, look, the more you wait, the bigger the chance of Iran launching. They have these, they call them missile cities. They're big missile fortifications that are buried in the ground, and they could open up and launch missiles out of them. I don't think they're very deep. They might be 20 feet or something. You're not going to do much with a 500-pound bomb with that, But when you start getting into the 2,000-pound bombs, yeah, when you go to 5,000-pound bombs, good night for Iran. Yeah, I don't know what Iran will do to the United States, but they're going to try. See, you guys in the United States don't have tanks on your borders, Canada, Pacific, Atlantic, Gulf, Florida. You don't have fallout shelters in your homes like we do, not fallout bomb shelters. You don't put tanks on your border. You don't put landmines on your border. You don't. With Mexico, you do. You have walls, but you don't do a lot of the stuff that we do. Okay, we've got Iron Domes and David slings and Arrow anti-missile missiles and anti-aircraft missiles all around Israel to take down incoming projectiles, including aircraft, drones, and missiles. You don't have that. You're vulnerable. America's been riding on its reputation. You're very vulnerable because you don't have these things. What they've done to us in Israel, and I suggest you strongly be paying attention to this. What Gaza did to us for years is they took helium balloons, like a kid's birthday party. You buy a tank of helium, you put the balloon over the nozzle, you turn it on, it fills the balloon up, you tie it off, and you give it to the kids, and it floats, right? So they take a basket, okay, and they put various things in the basket, and they tie it to a cluster of maybe 12 or 15 helium balloons, and it floats the basket, and they watch the wind to make sure they float it over into Israel. Inside, they put incendiary devices that cause fires. And they set a timer. They might set 5 minutes, 18 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever, right? And they let the thing go. It blows over into Israel. It lands. At some point in time, it blows up and causes an incendiary bomb to go off. And that makes for fires. And they burned tens of thousands of acres of farmland like that before October 7th. They burned a lot. And they could do that to America. And the scripture is, I will kindle fires in and about your cities. Where is that? I'll read it to you. Jeremiah 50:32, maybe. Let's get there. Jeremiah 50:32 or 33. Let's see. Yeah, 32. I hit it. And the most proud, those are your Satan bots, shall stumble and fall, and none shall raise him up. So it's curtains permanently. And this is Jehovah talking, but it doesn't, see, they put the words here in English, and I will kindle. They put 4 words in. In Hebrew, it's 1 word, okay? Yitzat, which is to kindle with fire, set on fire, burn, could be burn up, okay? So you could say, because the next word is esh, which is fire in Hebrew, it's probably better translated kindle a fire, or you could say burn a fire, in his cities. Now, it doesn't say 3 words, in his cities. It's got 1 word in Hebrew, Strong's number 5892, which has a meaning of probably cities, towns, villages, cities in general, we could say big, small, medium, okay? So it's just saying kindle fire cities, and it shall devour, that would be burn up. It would be a good word for that. All, and that word is call, I believe, which means all, A-L-L in English. All, and then it says round about him. So they put 3 words in for 1 word. Let's see what Strong's does for English. Circle. So there you have it. I mean, and you're going to see that, and Iran may be involved with that, and China may bring a lot of those balloons back over to America that could cause fires. The other things that Hamas did was they can launch balloons off of these ships nearby. Iran has drone ships. They can launch hundreds of drones off of these ships. They look like container boats or merchant marine vessels. And they don't have to, the drones could go pretty far. They don't have to be that close to the shore. Yes, America could also sink those ships, but you're dealing with crazy people. Yes, America could sink them, but these are crazy people. You have to understand that. They're insane. They don't think straight. Okay? And there's another passage of the fires in America. Let me, when the attack comes, let me see if I could find that scripture for you. Oh, I forgot. I got a couple of prayer requests here. One is for M.O. Mike Oscar. M.O. Mike Oscar. M.O. To know the true Lord, Jehovah. Mike Oscar to know the true Lord, Jehovah. And I guess Yeshua the Messiah is good too. Next is for PC. Papa Charlie PC. Papa Charlie PC needs general healing prayers for PC. General healing. Okay. I don't remember where the other one. Yeah, I do. It's Jeremiah 51 at the end, maybe 58. Let's see. Let's find it. See, the preppers that don't know the Bible are doing this all wrong. Instead of buying all the guns, they should buy themselves a, 10 or 20 fire extinguishers. I'm just making a joke. You can't counterplot against the Lord. Here it is, Jeremiah 51:58. Thus saith Jehovah of hosts, the broad walls. Now that could also mean long, okay? The translation from, Hebrew isn't so spot on. So we got like what, 2,000 miles of walls between Mexico and America? The broad walls or the long walls of Babylon shall be utterly broken, and her high gates shall be burned with fire, and the people shall labor in vain, and the folk, Folk, in the fire, and they shall be weary. You're going to wear you out. It also says he's going to make the people fearful, and they're going to stay where they are, hold up their bug out location, their house, their mobile home, or their apartments, wherever they are, and they're not going to want to come out. Now, we saw the Lord do this to the Jews, I would say, because the Jews in World War II, going back to 1939, were actually afraid to fight for the most part. They just put up with it. They went to the Warsaw Ghetto, they got on the trains, went to the camps, all of that stuff, walked into the gas chambers, the whole bit. Very little, very few resisted. Is that to say that no survivalists or prepper or gun people are going to kill these sleeper agents and invaders in America? No, they will. I think they will. Maybe they don't. The scripture says they're not going to do much. See, you're not going to get a gang of 5 or 10 people coming to your house. I think you're going to get massive amounts, but they're going to be burning the house. This is what they're going to do. That's what they did to us on October 7th. Let me tell you what you're up against. You're up against Muslims, crazies, terrorists, crazy. And what they did, they cut a fetus out of a woman's body when she was alive in front of her family. They raped men, men raping men. Yeah, they did that. And they also raped women in front of their children and family, and then killed them in front of the other family members, and then killed them all. On some occasions, they took children and tied them with wire or metal baling wire, I don't know what it was, the mother and the child, and they poured gasoline on them and burned them alive together. Okay? Yeah. They put a baby in an oven and killed it. They had an instruction manual. We caught them. We found these manuals they had that Hamas printed up for them, giving it to them in Hebrew words, but it was transliterated Hebrew. And one of the words were to the women is take off your pants. Okay? And they took over 100 back as hostages. Many are dead now. They're still holding 22 hostages. Now, this was allowed to happen by the government. Don't kid yourself. And Netanyahu, for many years, has been pushing gun control on Israel against what a lot of people in Israel want. So the people, by and large, in the south near Gaza should have been armed like in the old days. They had full automatic Uzis, they had M16s in full auto and semi auto. They had other rifles that were in semi and full auto. And they had a few clips of ammo, which is a good amount. If you got one 40 rounder in the gun and you got two other 40 rounders, you can hold yourself out pretty good if you don't shoot full auto. And even if they just had pistols, 9mm Glocks or Berettas in the house, they could have repelled them. This Netanyahu's a piece of garbage and you can't trust him. And he probably had this in mind, and also he didn't want to see a revolution and him get it. So he cut the amount of guns down. So these people were hiding in their houses, and they had bomb shelters, and they locked themselves in the bomb shelters, which is pretty hard to get into. And they were burning the house. The bomb shelters are very frequently in the house on the ground level. And they light the whole house up, and the smoke and stuff would get you, right? They don't have outside ventilation ducts in the bomb shelters because a lot of these shelters were built years ago, and we were worried about Saddam Hussein and other lunatics launching toxic substances into Israel. And this is in the 90s, and they gave all of us gas masks back then. We were afraid of that threat. Okay. So you guys are not prepared for this. Okay, bomb shelters are bulletproof and to a great extent explosive proof, but the way you could get them is they're either under the house or on the lower level of the house, and you light the house on fire, and then you've got to worry about the heat and the smoke. And that's how they were killing people in the bomb shelters. They couldn't really get into the bomb shelters. They couldn't get into the doors. A lot of the doors in Israel are made out of steel and metal, and they have bolts coming up at the top. They have bolts for the sides, both sides, and in the bottom. So when you turn the key to lock it, all these bolts go in, and in metal doors, 2 pieces of sheet metal, they would probably stop a 9mm or a 45, probably not a 357 or a 10mm. They would stop shotguns, and they would not stop assault rifles like an AK-47 or an M16 would probably just go right through it. And but they couldn't get into the houses very easily that way. So what they did is they went through the windows. You take the rifle, boom, 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 and you break all the glass out, and then you just climb in. Now, a lot of windows have bars, and some windows don't. And then they had special incendiary grenades. I don't know who made them, that they would throw through the window if they thought the people were in the house and they might have a gun, or they'd throw the incendiary grenade, which looked like, like a can of peas and carrots or something like that with a thing, you pull off the top that would trigger the thing to go off. And they'd throw it through a window with a delayed fuse, and it would kind of start bursting into very large, or ignite and make a very hot fire and cause fires. This is what you're in for. Okay? They're insane people. If you surrender to them, they're going to kill you. I promise you, they'll kill you. You're not going to, you read Jeremiah 50:51 and read Isaiah 47, and you get an idea what they're going to do. They're brutal. Brutal. They kill infants. They always they chant, death to America and Israel, death to the Jews, death to America. First the Saturday people, then the Sunday people. They hate America. You have no idea. And they're really horrible, I have a lot of videos in my YouTube. You can find them in the live section, not videos, live, about why America is the daughter of Babylon. And I just covered that in the last day or two. You could go look at those videos. In the last 2 days, I had a good one. I mean, it's America. It's America. The true believers are going to get out. They'll come to Israel. The lost tribes and the known Israelites are going to get out. And they'll come to Israel. That's called the next great Exodus. Many of U.S. Christians keep us in there. No, you don't. Jehovah does. You think they like us? Biden was giving money to Hamas. Okay? And he was giving money to protesters inside Israel and other countries. Does Trump want to take Gaza back and give the land back to Israel, which is clearly ours in the Bible? God made a covenant in Genesis 15 to give us the land from the Euphrates to the Nile, and Trump wants to keep it for America, doesn't he? You heard that. Does Trump want to help us get our other land back? No. No. And everybody thinks he's for Israel. You think he's for Jehovah by saying he wants to keep the land that Jehovah made a covenant to give to Israel for America? Please explain that to me. I don't understand if you believe that. I don't know why you would think that way. It's rather obvious to me. The retrofit of the fleet, yeah, but guys, you're talking hours or days till this goes down. Aren't I tired of saying peace in the Middle East? I've been warning people of wars, not peace. Did Yeshua say he came to bring peace or war? Not peace. When it comes down to earth, yeah. But roughly 2,000 years ago, no. War. Fighting. Peace doesn't exist until religion is abolished. You'll find in the coming days that not to be true. The world can think we're crazy. I expect that to happen. Isn't that what things were like when Yeshua came down to earth like 2,000 years ago in the human body, born of the Holy Spirit and a woman? All right, let me go through my notes and see what I didn't tell you. Because I made a lot of notes this morning. Okay. There's a lot of storms hitting America today, expected tornadoes. The scripture that comes to mind, the continuing whirlwind of the Lord falling on the head of the wicked until it accomplishes its purpose. So you probably didn't hear about the Iranian water crisis anywhere. Now you know that. If you guys think I'm a false teacher, I invite you openly to toss the demons out of me. Mark 16:16 or 16:17 says, "These signs shall follow those that believe in my name, they shall cast out devils." So if you think I'm a false believer and a Satanist, toss the devils out of me. But why am I the only one on the internet that gives you that offer? Try asking these other guys on the internet and women if they would give you permission to throw the demons out of them and see what you get. What you're going to get is likely, who told you to say that? Where did you get that from? Because they're going to try to figure out who's the source of this thinking. They won't ever agree to it. April 5th, heads up in America, all 50 states are going to have protests against the Trump administration and sit-ins. April 5th, heads up. I have no idea what's going to happen. Could be a big nothing, and on the other hand, could be something big, and it could be in the middle. Who knows? Eight B-52 bombers in Diego Garcia now. Lots of refueling tankers. 8 B-2 Spirit bombers. There's a Poseidon there. There was this, remember, Luke 21, I think it is. There'll be great earthquakes in diverse places. Well, you heard what happened out there by Thailand the other day. Now we had a 7.1, which originally was reported as a 7.3, I believe the first figures. The one in the Thailand area was a 7.7. This one I'll say was probably a 7.3, hit off the coast of Tonga, which is in the South Pacific. It is mostly Christian denomination churches. They don't have any Muslim population or Buddha or Hindu. It's mostly Churchianity. Trump said publicly that he was serious when he was talking about a third term. I told you that too. I'm going to take a quick break, come right back. See, these wars are also about BRICS, BRICS. The two biggest sellers of oil and bricks are Iran and Russia. The two biggest buyers are China and India. Okay? So you just heard Trump he said, well, I don't know if Putin was the cause, there's no ceasefire with Ukraine, but if he is, I'm going to put a 25% secondary tariff on the countries that buy oil from Russia. And he's got to knock Iran's oil off. Iran's breaking the sanctions, making him look like a jerk. Iran's arrogant, cocky. And if Iran takes control of Jordan and they get Iraq, of course, there's a proxy, so now they got Iraq and Jordan, and then they just take out the HTS in Syria, which is easy. Not so easy if Turkey's there with a base they're planning on building in central Syria. Then, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, the rest of them are just going to cave in and say, yes, what do you want us to do, Khomeini? We don't want to have a war with you. And then Iran controls all the oil, and then BRICS controls all the oil in the Middle East. It's a nightmare for America. Then they trade oil not on the US dollar. wrecked the value of the dollar, wrecked Trump's dynasty and American around the world because the economy will fall apart and all this other stuff. We're now in a 3-day holiday after Ramadan. And Mohammedanism, a holiday. It's called Eid something. And it's a lot of feasting, not fasting. Has potential for violence. Not great, though. So, the Iranians know that every day more war aircraft are coming into Middle East. Cargo planes are bringing weapons to Israel and other countries. I know Israel anyway. And there's 3 aircraft carriers with escort vessels, which I would say is probably someplace as a total of those 3, somewhere between 12 and 18 warships, plus the aircraft carriers, chugging over here. So is it in Iran's best interest to just wait for Trump to attack Iran? Or is it better for him to do a preemptive attack, specifically hit Diego Garcia with long-range missiles, which either they built, which I doubt, but China and Russia have them? And do you think China and Russia would hesitate to give Iran, let's say, 25 or 35 of these long-range missiles? Putin gave them to Belarus, the Orishnikov, and then they just rained missiles down on Diego Garcia, which is not a big place, and destroy the American aircraft, then start hitting other American bases and hit America in the homeland with sleeper agents and everything else. I would think that if Iran had a brain, and they do seem to have a brain, but it's demented, it's twisted, it's a brain like a high IQ serial killer, okay? That's the kind of brain they have, okay? Did you ever see that movie 30 or so years ago called Hannibal with, I forgot the guy's name, but he did a very good job acting it. It was a gruesome movie. It was out in the 90s, a creepy movie about a serial killer that was demented. And he was a doctor with a very, very high IQ, but he was Looney Tunes. Iran doesn't have a very, very high IQ, but they're not the dumbest people. They're not Arabs, they're Persians. They don't speak Arabic. They speak a language called Farsi. They're not that stupid. They're demented, all right. I think we covered most of it. You should read Jeremiah 50:51 and Isaiah 47 about the daughter of Babylon. Should be reading it. I think you're on an any day, any hour, any day mode now with this thing. And I myself, we have seen, and I've been reporting, it's been heating up with China and Taiwan, with them encircling Taiwan with ships and flying planes in their airspace and all that. And North Korea, we all know, are a bunch of full-blown Looney Tunes, crazy people. Um, and they want a unification of South Korea under them. And to say that they're communists is an understatement. They're like worse than communists. I don't know. I think you got to get into the Romans or Attila the Hun or something to get to where they are. You know, they're pretty far gone. And they've been raised from birth to hate Americans. And they're brutal. They're immoral. They're communists. China's people are immoral. They're communists. A lot of Russia came out of communism, so they're immoral. And Iran, they're completely Looney Tunes, the Muslim terrorists, crazies. If you kill me, I win. If you don't kill me and I'm still there, I win. So in their theology, there's no losing. You understand what you're dealing with? China, North Korea, and Russia understand losing. Iran doesn't. They don't understand. I've lived here many years. They don't understand. They think they're doing their God a favor by killing Jews and Americans. Don't think America's a friend of Israel. Don't ever think that. They forced us to give the Sinai Peninsula back under Jimmy Carter around the 70s, right? With the Camp David Accords. We had it. We were getting oil out of it. They forced us to give it back. Then in 2008, they forced us to leave Gaza. And look how that turned out. Today, there's 100,000 Egyptian troops dug in the Sinai Peninsula with tanks and armor. In the land that America told us to give back to Egypt, and they gave us guarantees for that. Is Trump doing anything about Egypt there? No, but America said they would, but they're not. What the heck is Egypt doing in the Sinai Peninsula with 100,000 soldiers violating the Camp David Accords? And I have not even heard Trump speak about it. And America made us give the land back to Egypt. And they made us give Gaza back. And look how that turned out. And look what Biden did to us. Withholding weapons, dictating to Netanyahu. Now, Trump doesn't do this. I'm well aware of that. Dictating to but he does want to keep Gaza for America, though, doesn't he? That's breaking God's covenant. How do you think Jehovah views that? Do you think Jehovah thinks Trump fears Jehovah? I don't. I think he thinks Trump is a big Satanist who wants to, prove Satan reigns, not Jehovah, or some garbage like this. I don't know what the heck's going on with Trump. I don't know. He will turn his back on us. It says in Jeremiah 50:51 regarding America, they will do evil in our sight. That means here in Israel. It's in there. You should be reading it. It's America. It talks about many different people, multitude of people, the melting pot. It says America sits on many waters. Come on, Atlantic, Pacific, Gulf of Mexico, Great Lakes. It has 2.5 million miles of rivers, and it has, I don't know how many millions of lakes. I think 2 or 3 million lakes of at least 10 square miles. It's massive. I can't remember all the numbers. It's huge. Look it up in Google. Graven images, I covered that a million times. Go through my old videos. You shall have no other God before thee. That's in the 10 Commandments, isn't it? Do they protect the Church of Satan, the federal government? Oh, yeah, they have rights. They protect the Church of Satan. Do they protect the Buddhists? Rub Buddha's belly. Buddha's a god. Here's the idol, the image of Buddha. Worship it, rub his belly. Yeah. Hindus, they got that woman with 8 arms. They make statues of, what's her name, Kali or something like that. Could call it cauliflower. Yeah, they protect them. Crazy churches, yeah, they protect all that stuff. Uh-huh. Think Jehovah likes that? You shall have no other gods before me, before thee. No, I don't think he likes it at all. Do you? You think Jehovah's pleased with abortions? Do you? I don't. Does America follow the Ten Commandments and keep the Sabbath holy and not work on Sabbath? No, they moved it to Sunday. What does the Sabbath represent? It represents the day that Jehovah rested after he made the creation in 6 days. That's Saturday. Now, that day can never be moved because you could never go back in time and change the day that Jehovah rested, can you? No. So it's absurd that they moved it to Sunday. If you were going to worship the sun god, whose birthday is coincidentally on December 25th, what day would you worship him on? Like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? Or maybe you'd worship him on Sun Day. Yeshua was born in the spring. He was the first of the lambs. That's how it's looked at. Not December 25th. It's ridiculous. That's Tammuz, the sun god's birthday in mythology. It's not real. And who's Tammuz's mother? Esther. How do you pronounce that in English? How about Easter? Oh. What are the churches? What is the actual purpose of Mass for Christ, also called Christmas? Is you think that Christmas doesn't mean Mass for Christ? Why would you think something like that? Of course it does. It began with the Catholics. There is such a thing as communion, but that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about Mass for Christ. So what the teaching is, and you can check this out, go back into the Catholicism, that's where it came from. Mass for Christ, what is that? They teach that when you take the bread or the wafer and the wine or the grape juice, that Christ has to come down from heaven and get re-crucified again for every single person that takes Mass. That's exactly what it means. And they further teach that Christ has no say in the matter. He has to go. So, if on a Sunday, on Easter Sunday or whatever, they have, 5 or 6 million people take Mass in America, it means that he was dragged, that in their logic, of course, it's not real, that he was dragged down from heaven and re-crucified 5 or 6 million times. Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. They celebrate Christmas in churchianity. They put a tree and decorate it with gold and silver. Jeremiah 10 says not to do that. They do it. They give presents to each other, celebrating Mass for Christ. It's a national holiday, Mass for Christ in America. Should wake up. Please, I invite you to toss the demons out of me if you believe I'm a false teacher. Please. And then you should ask the pastors why they never do the same thing I do. If you go to these churches, I wish you wouldn't. But if you do, ask them why don't they invite everybody on Sunday morning to throw the demons out of him if they're suspicious. These signs, Mark 16:16, these signs shall follow them that believe. In my name they shall cast out devils. I would say 101% of the people that go to churches, their whole life ever cast a demon out of anybody. Maybe 1/100,000th of 1% have ever done it. Yet, it's a sign that follows those that believe. So what does that mean? Does it mean they don't believe? What do you think? What do you think? Have you ever tossed a demon? Why not? Anthony Hopkins, thank you. That was the guy, Hannibal. Yes, yes. Gifted actor, as far as Hollywood goes. They always have sick themes, though. Worried about the wrong country? Watch. These signs shall follow those that believe. In my name they shall cast out devils. When you read about New Jerusalem in Revelation 21 and 22, the fearful are not in there. You are mentally challenged and brainwashed. There's help available if you're ready to receive it. I'll leave that post up and take it as a compliment. The nations are drinking of the cup of the wrath of the Lord. Zechariah 12 is the next battle, not Ezekiel 38-39 regarding Israel. Ezekiel 38 says that Israel, at that time, Israel's living in peace and safety without bars and walls, with great riches, cattle, gold, and silver. You think that's Israel today? Boy, are you wrong. 28% of people live at the poverty level. People are running to the bomb shelters practically every night. There's bars and walls all over the place. My little village has a militia of ex-police and ex-military people armed with government assault weapons, radio networks for the police and the military, and military vehicles. And they drive around our little village all the time, 24/7. If any infiltrators get here from Jordan or something like that, or terrorists coming on gliders or something like that, they'll blow their heads off. Do you think we have any crime now in Israel with them running around the streets all day long with assault weapons and know how to use them? I don't know about any crime anymore. We never really had any. You can leave your doors open. You don't have to lock your car. I mean, these guys will just blow you up, like that. I think they got Tabors, which are bullpup 223 rifles. Way more accurate than the M16s. Oh, cold hammer forged barrels, the whole bit, okay? And they're bullpup, they don't kick. That means you can stay on target and do bursts. Like, you don't have to do just the 3. You could get up to 6 or 7 bursts. They just sprinkle somebody. And a lot of it's mostly private houses, and a lot of us have dogs. So if any, bad terrorist goes walking down the street, what happens? Woof, 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 woof. He gets by the next house. Woof, 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 woof. What happens if they try to climb in a house and go over the fence into the yard? Well, it sounds like this. And then the neighbors come, and a lot of the neighbors have guns, and then they come, the militia comes, and they scream at people not to kill them. They want them alive. What they probably do is I'll tell you this. You could spray bullets on concrete and roads, and they, if you know what you're doing, they ricochet and hit in the legs. And when you get hit in the legs, you fall down. You're not going to fall down on your back perfectly and hold your rifle on your stomach and continue to fight. The chances of that are 1 in 1,000. Okay, you're out of the fight and you're alive. Tourniquets, ambulance, then comes interrogation. And if they cooperate in the interrogation, which the vast majority of them do, interrogation is going to, first medical coverage and then recovery. And then it's, by that I'm talking hours, not days, hours. And then, hey, did you want something to drink? Would you like some coffee, tea, Coke, 7-Up? What would you like? Could I get you a sandwich? Pizza? Would you like to eat something? Okay. Do you need cigarettes? Here's some cigarettes. So, how'd you come in? They just start laying stuff on the guy, do you want to use my cell phone, talk to your family? That's how it's mostly done. If they get a hard head, then he goes to extended interrogation, which is not pleasant. But these are murderers coming in here and they kill infants, children, women, the old, the young, everybody, burn things, they'd start fires. Okay. These are trained serial killers that are psychotic. That's exactly what they are. But most of them are going to cave in. You don't need to do extended interrogation with them. What for? You just start giving them stuff they want when they're in custody. That's all. You don't have to go too far with them. Don't think you got to start, drawing and quartering them or doing stuff out of a Hollywood movie. They're not that way. They're weak. They're weak. They're brutal, but they're still weak. So anyway, if you want a gun bad enough in Israel, you can get one. You can get one. A pistol, anyway. If they had pistols, simple 9mm Glocks down in Gaza when that happened, they would have ran in the house. The guy would have busted out a window. Remember, almost everybody's in the military here. I was never in the military, but in my younger days, I was what you would call in English a reserve police guy. I didn't get paid, but I went on duty. I had a rifle, and I rode around in police vehicles and stuff like that. I was anti-crime, not anti-terror. And I did that for a while. And I had full police powers and stuff like that, but I never went in the military. When I came here, I was too old for the military. I tried to go in, but I was too old. They looked at me like I was crazy when I went down there. But, I was over 40, and they said, no, we can't use you. What are we going to do with you? Reservists stay in the reserves until they're 40 now, until they're 40 years old. Women don't stay in the reserves. There's a lot of women that are in the military. They actually make it as a career, too. A lot of women are career military. The only way you're really going to make a lot of money a nice living in the military, you're not going to get rich, but is to be an officer. But we have about 400,000 reservists, maybe a little more than that. So it looks like it's going to go, guys. And remember, if Russia and Belarus and it'd probably be Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Kurdistan and those countries light up against Europe and NATO, and the EU lights up against them, and North Korea starts with South Korea, China starts with Taiwan, Japan, the Philippines, Guam, and America's in the Middle East, and the Iranians are attacking America, and the sleeper agents attacking America. America ain't going to make it. You can tell me they will, but Bible prophecy says no. Now, with Elijah and Apostle John starting to work, which is Malachi 3 into 4, Malachi 4, I think the siege in Zechariah 12 is going to happen at about the same time America gets attacked. Probably after, because and that's when Elijah and Apostle John will be working. And if you read Zechariah 12, verse 6, you read the two judges, or some translations say governors, burn them up on the right hand and the left, the ones surrounding Israel in the siege, which is a blockade, really. That's got to be the two witnesses. Read Zechariah 12. The same guys that don't sit there and say, hey, throw the demons out of me, don't teach you Zechariah 12. And then look at Zechariah 12:10, and you see the Israelites see the appearing of the sign of the Son of Man, as in Matthew 24, verse 30. That's not his return to earth. That's his appearing, as in Revelation 1:7. Every eye shall see him. And that's when the true believers and the Israelites get everlasting life. John 6:40, those that believe and see him shall have everlasting life. I gave you all the scriptures. You can play it back and watch it read it for yourself. Pray about it. Ask the Lord. My references are Father God, Jehovah, and Yeshua HaMashiach. Okay? Ask them about me. Go ahead, ask them. Whatever you want to ask them about me, ask them. Who is this guy? Should I listen to this guy? Did the other preachers and guys on the internet ever tell you to do that? Please do it. Please. So please, I'm Moshe. Please pray for me and my wife for our peace, safety, protection, and joy, and healing of our bodies. And pray for our finances. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for better videos. Pray for our animals and pets, which are all rescues, to be happy, healthy, and whole. And I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. And if you want to get the updates, subscribe. And you might want to check out my Telegram. You need Telegram Messenger. Send me an email. My email address is in the bottom of the description box. Israel Giving with the digit 7 at gmail.com. Israel Giving, one word, with the digit 7 at gmail.com. And you're going to get all the news updated 5 or 10 times a day, translated from Arabic and Hebrew. And you're going to know a lot more what's going on in the Middle East. And thank you. I hope you got something out of it. And I'm out.